65. It's the number that lives in the back of every Gen X mind. The finish line, the reward, the moment when decades of alarm clocks, commutes, performance reviews, and delayed gratification finally end. 65 is the age when the deal is supposed to pay off. But here's what almost nobody asks. Where did that number come from? Who decided that 65 was the right age? And what if that number was never designed with your interests in mind, but with someone else's entirely? The answer is more uncomfortable than most people expect, and the financial consequences of blindly trusting that number are already showing up in Gen X portfolios right now. Like, subscribe, and let's start. Number 1. The origin of a number that was never meant for you. The retirement age of 65 has a specific birth date. It was introduced in Germany in 1889 by Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. The original pension age was 70. It was later adjusted to 65. And here's the detail that changes everything. In 1889, the average life expectancy in Germany was approximately 45 years. The pension was not designed to be collected. It was designed to exist on paper, a political promise that the government calculated most workers would never live to claim. It cost almost nothing to offer. It bought enormous political goodwill. And it set a precedent that virtually every developed nation eventually copied without questioning the underlying logic. When the United States introduced its national pension system in 1935, it set the retirement age at 65. Life expectancy at the time was approximately 61 years. Once again, the math was intentional. Most workers would contribute their entire careers and die before the system paid them back meaningfully. The retirement age of 65 was never calculated around human well-being. It was calculated around government solvency. That number has now traveled 135 years through history, through entirely different economies, through entirely different medicine, through entirely different lifespans, and it arrived in the 21st century largely unchanged. While everything else about modern life transformed beyond recognition, the finish line stayed exactly where Bismarck put it. Gen X inherited a number from 1889 and built their entire financial life around it. Number 2. The lifespan that broke the original math. Here's where the trap becomes concrete. When the retirement age of 65 was established across most developed nations, the system was designed for a short retirement window. 5 years, maybe 10. A brief period of rest before a natural end. That calculation no longer works. Current average life expectancy across English-speaking developed nations sits at approximately 80 to 83 years. In the UK, it's around 81. In Australia, approximately 83. In Canada, approximately 82. These are averages, which means a significant portion of the population lives considerably longer. According to World Health Organization data, 1 in 4 people age 65 today will live past 90. 1 in 4. That's not a brief retirement window. That's 25 years of living without a salary. Let's put real numbers on what 25 years of retirement actually costs. A modest lifestyle, not luxury, not deprivation, just reasonable comfort with occasional travel and normal healthcare, requires approximately $3,500 per month in most developed countries. Over 25 years, that's $1,050,000. A comfortable lifestyle at $5,000 per month over 25 years, $1,500,000. And these numbers assume no major medical events, no extended care needs, no helping adult children, no inflation eroding purchasing power beyond the baseline calculation. Gen X is planning for a 10-year retirement. The actuarial reality says prepare for 25. That's not a minor miscalculation. That's a fundamental structural failure in how an entire generation was taught to think about the end of their working life. Number 3. The moving finish line. Why 65 is already gone. Here's something worth noticing. Governments across the developed world have been quietly, and not so quietly, raising the official retirement age for years. Not because people are healthier and more energetic, because the original math stopped working when lifespans extended beyond what the system was designed to handle. The UK's official retirement age is currently 66, with legislation already in place to raise it to 67 by 2028. Further increases to 68 are actively being discussed. Australia set its retirement age at 67. Germany is at 67. France raised its retirement age to 64 in 2023, a decision that triggered nationwide protests because people understood exactly what it meant. The finish line is moving. Not dramatically, not all at once, just steadily, incrementally, consistently, in one direction, away from the people approaching it. And here's the part that should concern Gen X most directly. The current wave of retirement age increases across developed nations is being driven by the same demographic reality. The baby boomer generation is now fully retired. Gen X is approaching retirement, and the financial systems that fund retirement benefits are under unprecedented pressure. Gen X is not just watching the finish line move. Gen X is one of the primary reasons it's moving. The systems they paid into for 40 years are now recalculating whether they can afford to pay out. And the adjustment is happening in real time, while Gen X is close enough to retirement to feel the ground shifting underneath them. Number 4. The portfolio that wasn't built for this reality. Let's look at what the numbers actually say about Gen X retirement readiness. A comfortable 20-year retirement, on the conservative end of what the lifespan data suggests, requires approximately $1,200,000 in accumulated savings at the point of retirement, assuming a modest 5% annual withdrawal rate. According to multiple studies of retirement savings across English-speaking countries, the median Gen X household approaching retirement age has accumulated approximately $650,000 in retirement assets. The gap is $550,000. And closing that gap in the years remaining before 65 requires either dramatically increasing contributions, delaying retirement, or both. Here's what the math says about delaying. A $650,000 portfolio left to grow at 7% annually for 7 additional years, while the owner continues contributing, reaches approximately $1,200,000. 7 years. That's the price of the gap between what most Gen X has saved and what a comfortable retirement actually costs. Not because they were reckless, not because they made terrible decisions, because they were planning for a retirement system that was built in 1889, promised in mid-century, and quietly recalculated by governments and actuaries long before Gen X was ever told. Number 5. The trap inside the trap. What waiting until 65 actually costs. Here's the part nobody explains until it's too late. Retirement at 65 isn't just a number on a calendar. It's a financial decision with compounding consequences that begin decades earlier. The belief that 65 is the target creates a specific planning pattern in Gen X households. Contributions are calculated around that date. Withdrawal strategies are built around that date. Risk tolerance shifts are scheduled around that date. The entire financial architecture points toward one fixed moment. When the moment is wrong, the entire architecture is wrong. Consider 2 Gen X investors who each saved $1,000 per month starting at age 45. Investor A targets retirement at 65. 20 years of contributions at 7% annual return produces $520,000. Investor B, understanding the real numbers, targets retirement at 67 and continues contributing. 22 years of contributions at 7% annual return produces $634,000. Difference? $114,000 from 2 additional years, from questioning a number instead of trusting it. And this doesn't account for 2 additional years of not withdrawing from the portfolio, which means the portfolio itself continues compounding without the drain of living expenses. Those 2 years combined can add $150,000 to $200,000 to the retirement outcome. Not from earning more, not from investing differently, just from not treating an arbitrary historical number as a personal financial law. The audit of the finish line. Here's the question worth sitting with this week. When you picture retirement, what age appears in your mind? And then, where did that number come from? Not philosophically, practically. Did a financial advisor calculate it based on your specific projected lifespan, your specific expenses, your specific healthcare needs? Or did it come from a cultural expectation so embedded that it was never questioned? Most Gen X people have never calculated their retirement number from scratch. They've used calculators that asked for a target retirement age and filled in 65 without thinking. They've read articles that assumed 65 and built their advice around it. They've watched their parents retire at 65 and assumed the same timeline applies. It doesn't. The world that produced the age of 65 no longer exists. The life expectancy that made it financially viable no longer exists. The government systems that were supposed to support it are visibly struggling to maintain the promise. 65 is not a finish line. For most Gen X people, based on actual lifespan data and actual retirement costs, 65 is approximately the midpoint of the financial challenge, not the end of it. The real finish line is later. The real cost is higher. And the real plan needs to be built around those realities, not around a number a 19th century German chancellor invented to solve a political problem he never expected most people to survive long enough to collect. Run the real numbers. Build the real plan. Because the trap isn't retirement itself. The trap is believing the finish line is where someone else put it. I'll see you in the next video.